Welcome back to Films Recapped. Today I will show you a thriller/romance movie from 2010, titled The Tourist. Warning: spoilers ahead. Watch out and enjoy. In Paris, a French surveillance team observes a woman in an apartment. Without much stealth, they follow her to a cafe. She follows her usual routine and orders the same thing that she normally does. There is something out of the ordinary though. A mail carrier has a letter for her. With this deviation from the normal, the French police call Scotland Yard, who they are working with on this case. Inspector John Acheson answers and tells them to get that letter. The letter is a set of instructions addressed to Elise and is from her lover, Alexander Pearce. It turns out that Alexander is who the police are really after, as he owes nearly £750 million in back taxes. In addition, he stole $2.3 billion from a mobster named Reginald Shaw. The police believe that Alexander may have received plastic surgery in order to better hide from them, making Elise their best option to find him. However, Acheson's superiors are tired of funding what seems like a wild goose chase and tell him to lay off the case. He agrees to quit working on the case, but immediately goes back to work on it. Elise does as the letter tells her. She burns it, and boards the train to Venice. Once on the train, she is to pick a man with the same height and build as Alexander to make the police believe he is him. She does all of this and picks out a man named Frank Tupelo. Over the course of the journey, Elise learns that Frank, a rather ordinary man, is a math teacher at a community college in Wisconsin. Also, on the train are two of the French investigators working on the Alexander Pearce case. Inspector Acheson was able to glean from the burned note that Elise would be taking this train but was not aware of the plot to find an Alexander look-alike. Not knowing that the case is supposed to be cold, they send a photo to Acheson of the man they believe to be Alexander, and he gets the photo to Italian Interpol. However, they soon realize the ruse and Acheson is forced to call off Interpol, though he does still make his own way to Venice. Before the mix-up is fully cleared up, a policeman that is also working for mobster Reginald Shaw sends him the photo and information on who he believes to be Alexander. Shaw immediately makes his way to Venice to deal with the man. He tells his crew that they can kill Elise but need to leave Alexander alive, for now. Upon arriving in Venice, Elise invites Frank to go with her into town and then to stay with her at the Hotel Daniele. In a rare moment of openness, Elise tells Frank a bit about Alexander and her relationship to him. Back at their hotel, she cements the illusion that Frank is Alexander by kissing him on their balcony while in sight of one of Shaw's men. Elise then receives further instructions from Pearce in the form of an invitation to a ball. The following morning, Elise leaves their hotel without so much as a word to Frank. While he's alone, two of Shaw's men break into his room and then chase him across the rooftops and through the streets of Venice. During this chase, Elise spots him and is genuinely concerned for his safety. Unfortunately, this chase is cut short when Frank is detained by the Italian police. He tries to tell them about his attempted murder, but they don't believe him. Then, a corrupt officer turns him over to Shaw in exchange for the bounty that was placed on his head. At least the officer tries to do that. As he is collecting his money, Elise rescues him. Shaw's men chase them through the canal, but they eventually manage to evade the men. Under the cover of night, she drops him off at the airport with his passport and money and urges him to go home. Elise also deeply apologizes for all that she's gotten him into, saying she never thought that Alexander would let it go so far as to potentially get him killed. Frank disappointedly watches her leave as he admits to himself that he loves her. After dropping Frank off, Elise goes to an official office where it is revealed that she herself is a former undercover Scotland Yard agent. She was suspended from her duties because her superiors believed she had grown too close to Alexander. In the offices, she tells Inspector Acheson that she's ready to hand over her lover. She can't stand beside someone that would allow an innocent person, Frank, to get killed. She agrees to wear a wire to the ball that evening so that Scotland Yard might be able to gather enough evidence to capture him. She searches the ball for Alexander, but is unable to find him. That is, until a man leaves an envelope at her table and disappears before she can catch up to him. Her search, however, is interrupted by Frank. He demands a dance from her and during it, tells her that he won't be leaving Italy without her because he loves her. She again tells him to leave, and he is picked up by Acheson's men so that he won't get in the way of the investigation anymore. Now off the dance floor, Elise reads the note that was left for her. In it is a key, an address, and a time. She drives her boat off towards the address and is followed by both the police and by Shaw's men. At the address, it is not Alexander waiting for her, but Shaw. He takes her hostage and tells her about how much Alexander used to mean to him. Then he threatens her unless she tells him where Alexander hid the stolen money. The police and Frank watch the situation from the outside. Despite the situation, Acheson refuses to allow snipers to step in. He's convinced that Alexander will show himself. Although she has no idea where the money is, she takes a guess and tells Shaw that it is behind a carving that matches a bracelet she wears. Luckily, she is correct in her guess. But now Shaw demands that she open the safe. Before she is able to enter the correct combination, Frank bursts into the room, having escaped the police while they were distracted watching Shaw. He claims to be Alexander and tells Shaw that he'll open the safe if only Elise is set free. Shaw doesn't accept this offer, and tells him to open it or he'll hurt Elise in front of him. By this point, the other police officers are insisting on intervening, but as Atchison is again telling them no, Chief Inspector Jones arrives and grants permission. The snipers open fire and kill Shaw and his men. The police, including Jones, enter the room, and begin to collect evidence. To her great pleasure, Jones tells Elise that her suspension is lifted and that her job has been terminated. The police then receive word that Alexander has been taken into custody nearby and all rush out. Unfortunately for them, the man was just an English tourist who was hired by Alexander. Now alone, Frank asks Elise how she feels about both him and Alexander. She reveals that she is conflicted and that she thinks she loves them both. Frank then tells her that he has a solution for that. He reveals that he really has been Alexander all along by entering the correct code to the safe. They take the contents with them, leaving just one check inside. Once the police finally return to the scene, they break into the safe and find the check worth £744 million. Now that they have the money that Alexander owed, Jones officially closes the case. Atchison objects, but is overruled. In the final scene of the film, Elise and Alexander sail off towards the horizon. They are finally together and finally aware of how the other feels. Make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you can watch more videos like this. Thanks for watching.